All right. So, welcome to the first official episode of season 5. Yesterday, it was not the official start, it was the unofficial start. We did not discuss anything specific. We went over some logistics and how should we proceed with this season. Today, things will take a turn, and things will take a turn for the better. Now, I'm aware that I think to those who are part of the GS module, you also have your deep dive session scheduled today. So we will have a shorter class. I think today, tomorrow onwards, we'll be having longer sessions. And we will move towards discussing the questions as well. Today will be just an introduction to PIR. I've said this in the past, whichever questions that you will see in your paper 2 will directly come from MisFits episodes. I can say this with confidence. Call me overconfident, but that's the reality. You will see this happening. So please do not get swayed by outside materials, outside YouTube videos, so on and so forth. Do this bare minimum. Revise, re-revise. Not a single question from outside of this will come. And even if it were to come, you will know how to tackle those questions. If you were to look at the syllabus, I think there's a line mentioned in your syllabus, approaches to study international relations. It's a part that will be tested in your examinations. Now, my question is, what does it mean? Approaches to study international relations. And you will see a couple of questions, directly a couple of questions from here, and indirectly, you can use these terms that we may study today in many of your answers. So what does it mean? Approaches to study international relations. Or what could it mean? Make some conjectures. Usha, take a shot. What could it mean?
um, how to go about understanding the relations of our country with the different countries.
Okay, and what would that be?
Uh, to learn about the history and how to better our country in regards to the relationship with other different countries in order to
Okay,
improve.
good. So you make all the mistakes with me here. No penalties. But for the mistakes in the examinations, penalty of time, effort, and whatnot. Approaches to study international relations. Also, Archita, I am making you the co-host. Please remove those whose requests have not been approved from the Zoom screen. To all those who have not written to you. Okay. Gayatri.
Yes, sir. Sir, approaches means various approaches that we studied before also, like different perspectives, though it is from uh, Plato's perspective of idealism, or from Marx's perspective of Marxism, or Machiavelli's perspective of realism, which can be able to solve the contemporary issues of foreign policies.
Okay. Deepak, what do you think? What could this mean? approaches to study international relations. 3 simple English sentences. Approaches to study international relations.
Approaches to study.
No, I can't hear you. I think there's a huge lag. What I'll do is I'll show you a very interesting video. Okay. Let's go through this video and tell me your thoughts.
Sir, am I audible?
But you have to promise me one thing, you cannot smile or laugh when you watch the video. So let's watch it. I can smile, you cannot.
Vote for Donald Trump. Make world great again. Make world great again. Vote for Donald Trump. Make world great again. Om सर्वेभ्यो देवेभ्यो नमो नमः श्री भगवते नमो नमः श्री नारायणाय नमः शांति पृथ्वी शांतिरापः शांतिरोखदयः शान्तिर् प्रजाभ्यो भयन्नः पशुभ्यः विजय तिलकं समर्पयामि विजयी भवः विजयी ओम ह्रीं महालक्ष्म्यै नमः ओम क्लीं महासरस्वत्यै नमः ओम नमानन्दक्लीं नवदुर्गादेव्यै नमः स्वाहा ओम स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धस्वाहा स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तु मेक वर्ल्ड ग्रेट अगेन वोट फॉर डोनाल्ड ट्रम्प च मुखं पदमस्तम्भे जिह्वां कीने बुद्धिं विनाशाय ह्रीं ओम फट् स्वाहा
I like all these dialogues that are put in. Okay, thoughts? What did we just see? Tell me any thoughts? Agree, disagree, vehemently disagree. But tell me something. Amit?
Sir, I would say blind faith.
Blind faith? Why? Why do you say that?
Because sir, it's dependent upon, I think, the voting process.
Okay. Chan, what do you think? Any thoughts? If you see these, these videos of learned men,
Sir, I would say that how they perceive things are very different, how the religion views about this drum election. And I would, they think that the drum would protect the Indian citizen there. It's good
Okay.
for them from the religion perspective, but from the economic perspective, Trump is talking about raising tariffs. So from that will be different.
all right. Interesting. Animesh, your thoughts? Can you have thoughts in the library? Can you speak out? Is it allowed?
Yeah, sir.
Okay.
So I was just thinking that the friendship between Trump and Modi is all what Hinduism and the BJP supporters cares about, and especially the priests, those who think that Hinduism needs to be revived as far as the situation. So in ongoing Khalistan and the Bangladesh where Hindus are not being treated well, so they are not thinking from a very wider lens. They think very narrowly and perspective from only religion levels. That's what I can comprehend. I was thinking on this lens only.
But you're using very interesting term, lens. Religious lens. Muslim lens, Hindu lens. See, the reality is some of Donald Trump's policies might actually end up making life tougher for these very saints. Of course, they're making mockery of idealism. Immigration laws, trade policies could perhaps hit very hard on India. But now my question is, why would they support someone who might end up making their lives harder? A group of Indian saints chanting and praying for Donald Trump, believing that he will make the world great again. And they genuinely seem to support him, right? They're not alone, there are so many. Why is this happening? What are they gaining? Better watch Netflix for 3 hours and do all this charade. If you think critically, his policies might actually end up being quite disastrous for these very saints. And how can we ignore this one very basic fact? He is going to be the president of USA, not India. Citizens of America, USA, they voted him in power. And why are these gems of India, why are they so happy about this victory? Depends upon their lens. What's the lens? What's their approach to international relations? How do they view international politics? How myopic is their lens? How broad is their lens? How critical is their lens? How liberal is their lens? How realistic is their lens? This is exactly the kind of questions that, that the different approaches to international relations will help us answer. Whatever we might study in time to come, it's going to be magical because we're going to be putting in new lenses. These lenses will provide us different ways to look at the same situation. Right? I think we had one class on perspectives. These lenses in IR, very powerful tool. These lenses will reveal layers that might go unnoticed. And take it from me in just a couple of days, tomorrow and the day after. With these new approaches, you will get, you will see you'll get new sets of eyes. And that's how you will analyze the global politics. And we are studying IR now. It's a historic phase. We have a new president in America who may perhaps make the world great again. If we were to go and abide by those chants. So today, tomorrow, we are going to study various major approaches to analyze international relations, those lenses. And I've said this before that you can expect at least 2 questions from these 2-3 episodes directly. Today, we may not look at questions, but tomorrow we will look at questions. And then there can be other indirect ways to get 40 odd marks. Kalpana, what happened? What's making you yawn so much?
Sir, actually, I had night duty, so that's why I'm a little sleepy. So sorry.
So sleep, don't spend time here. Because you will not learn anything. What's the point? Whenever you're engaged, then spend time. Two direct questions. Many ways to indirectly use this in your answers. So mastering these approaches is not just helpful, it is essential for all of you. So what are these approaches? What could these approaches be? There are many. Realism, liberalism, Marxism, and whatnot. We pick on those approaches. So anyone who's a realist in life? I tend to be realist. A realist would argue that, Donald Trump, across his whole campaign, is saying America first. He's saying, make America great again. But then they're translating that and thinking let's make world great again. Doesn't care about world, cares about America. That's realism. Why are these saints not realizing this? Are they idealists? Is he America's president or India's president? Today, if American people, if they tell him, and if the popular opinion tell him, deport and jail these saints, he would do that. Make world great again. None of the relatives of these saints, none of them, are going to have an easier time getting the American passport or visa. He anyway has a strong stance against immigration. And these saints are so concerned about make world great again. How much of the world have they seen? UP, Bihar, MP, Rajasthan. World is beyond that. It's the American people who elected him. The realists would say, and they would argue that Donald Trump, which is America's first stance, he is prioritizing American power, American interests above everything else. Then why are some idiots going gaga over Trump's victory in Bihar? As an Indian diplomat, I should not care if he wins or loses. As an Indian diplomat, I should not care. All I should care is how can I manage him well so that my country thrives, my country succeeds. That's one lens. Lens of realism. It is said that Nehruji lacked that lens. Is it true? Partly, yes, I think. Sardar Patel ji, he was a strong realist. Nehruji had an idealist approach to international politics. Why is it said this? So, idealism, realism, that's what I'm discussing today. At a very broad level. Don't stress. No questions and answers discussed today. How many of you have heard of Panchsheel Agreement with China? In 1950s, Nehruji signed that agreement. Don't worry about it. We'll do that in detail. But what is Panchsheel to all those who know about it? We did this in GS. Janani?
Good afternoon, sir. It was signed with China. I think it had few features like mutual respect for each other's sovereignty, uh, non-interference in the decision making. I'm not able to pick the right points.
At a broader level, what does it mean?
Uh, I think, okay, I am not able to recollect at the moment. I'm so sorry.
Gayatri?
Sir, it was signed between Nehru and the Chinese. I don't remember his name. It was on the issue of Tibet and Tibet, China, and India. So it includes 5 principles, which is first is mutual non-aggression, then the second is non-interference, third was equality and mutual benefit.
Okay. No need to cram. But good. Panchsheel Agreement, 5 fundamental principles that Nehruji and Chinese leadership believed could guide relations between our two countries. Panchashil. Panch means what? I mean, five. Panch. Panch. Sheel refers to the virtues or principles. So quite literally, it means five principles agreement. This idea was very ambitious. Nehruji believed that if by following these rules, countries could coexist peacefully, respect each other's sovereignty, avoid conflict. This was the time when world was already divided into blocks. And Nehruji wanted India to be the leading voice for peace and neutrality. These 5 points, they were meant to promote a peaceful world order. Broadly, it's not just about India and China. It shows Nehruji's vision for global approach to diplomacy. And by the way, many may argue, why are you calling Nehru as Nehruji? So we should read things beyond WhatsApp. He was the first prime minister. Perhaps he achieved something more than you did. I also call Modi ji. Again, prime minister. Incredible feat. But I will not call Godse ji. Nehruji believed that if countries followed these principles, they could coexist peacefully without fear of domination or interference. I may disagree with his view. Disagreements are fine. Character assassination, that's concerning. So how many of you think Nehru's vision was an idealistic vision in that world? Ideal. No one? Sardar Patel will disagree with you vehemently. Myra?
Yes, sir, I believe that he was a little idealist because uh, his belief was like there would be collective security amongst nations and countries would cooperate with each other. But there was also the time where countries like China were building up themselves. So he did not maybe he did not take it into consideration that the realist.
You can say all these things with Chanakya. What would he say? Chanakya would say, if he were alive around that time, say that you can say all these things. Good Nehruji. But please make sure that you have nuclear weapons to back it up. Why? Perhaps because Chanakya would believe in realpolitik. Let's go back in time. In 1947, when India gained its independence, Patel and Nehru had different views on how to handle India's external threats. There were many debates. Sardar Patel ji, he believed in what we call realpolitik. We had detailed discussions on it. Realpolitik, it's all about making decisions based on practical considerations, not on lofty ideals. In fact, I think there's one letter that Sardar Patel ji wrote to Nehru. Patel warned him about this potential risks of trusting China too much. It's out in the open now. Sardar Patel felt that China had larger ambitions in Asia. India needs to be vigilant. Not just that, India needs to be prepared. And how remarkable is that insight? Indeed, China had greater ambitions in Asia. surrounded by Chinese agent states now. Pakistan, Nepal, Sri Lanka. For Sardar Patel ji, world was not just about good intentions. Make world great again. It's about power, influence. World that we are, it's about strategic interests. That is what Sardar Patel ji said. And that is perhaps why he advocated for strengthening India's defenses. Of course, go ahead, do these Panchsheel agreements, but ensure that you have defenses in place. So now my question is, which lens is correct? Lens of Nehruji, the idealist lens, or the lens of Sardar Patel ji, the realist lens? See, in the hindsight, we know the answer. Panchsheel failed the test. Why? Why did it fail? What happened? Why am I saying that Panchsheel failed the test? Simran?
Sir, actually, I'm not able to recall now.
Okay.
But what conjecture I can make is because of border disputes.
Have you heard of 1962 Indo-China War?
Yes.
So now make conjectures. Why would this Panchsheel in 1950 fail the test?
So basically, because China would have not followed up with the agreements and the 5 points of the Panchsheel.
China destroyed Indian armed forces ruthlessly in 1962. Hindi Chini bhai bhai, what happened to it? China took over large swaths of our territory. Nehruji would claim in the parliament that no, nothing grew over there. It's a strategic land China took from us. That's why I'm saying that, Panchsheel was fine, but in reality, what happened? Sino-Indian War. Despite the agreements, China launched an unexpected invasion. And that invasion was so strong, it shook the foundations of Nehru's foreign policy approach. I think a few years later, he also collapsed, Nehruji. We had to have a new prime minister. What if India had taken more cautious, strategic approach? We had the Sardar who suggested this. Perhaps our preparation, our responses might have been a little different. We would have forged alliances, who knows? We would have invested in certain capabilities at that critical juncture. So ideals are important. That is what Patel would say. But those ideals, they should not blind a nation to potential threats. The saints celebrating, what are they calling it? I'm not calling Donald Trump, I'm calling it Donald Trump. That's a good vibe to it. It's an idealistic hope. Peaceful coexistence through Panchsheel. But a realist would say what? If you were Sardar Patel today, what would you tell these worldly saints? We'll show them the mirror. We'll ask them, tell me your passport. Pay the visa. Where do you work? What are your kids doing? Donald Trump is under no obligation to align his policies with the hopes of people in India. Like Sardar Patel, we've got to have realist diplomats. They would say Trump's job is to look after American interests, not Modi's interests. think yesterday, I think there were huge chants in one of his speeches about Bobby Kennedy, shouting Bobby, Bobby. Some from Bihar and UP, they understood they're calling it Modi, Modi, chanting Modi, Modi. They made a conjecture. See, American elections are also influenced by Modi ji. It's Modi ji who made him win the elections. Not kidding. On LinkedIn, there's a post, thousands of likes, taking that nationalist pride, calling for Kennedy. Idealism and realism. It's different. Two different lenses, two ways of seeing the world. So in our journey starting today, we'll have to put in more lenses to our toolkit because these approaches are important. These approaches around Marxism, realism, liberalism, and various strands of it, but not. These are very critical. With each approach, you will get a richer, deeper understanding of international relations. That's why we're starting with theories of international politics. And that begins with approaches. There's absolutely no need to read through any other thing. We'll rely entirely on MisFits for all the learnings, be it paper 1 or paper 2 of PSIR. And today we'll begin this story with idealism, the idealist tradition. This idealist tradition is also termed as liberal tradition. So in UPSC, they can, swap those words. Liberal tradition, idealist tradition means the same thing. But why is that? What is the idealist approach? Kundan, what is this idealist approach?
It is built on lofty ideas, as we discussed. It's something that is not practical. For example, in liberalism, as we had seen, that it argued for global prosperity, but 2000 financial crisis and other 2008 financial crisis and other such incidents showed how um, it led to more economic disparity.
Okay. Before I tell you this, I think it's much more practical to have strands of idealism, strands of realism, strands of Marxism in your thought process. No one ideology is ideal. Because don't get swayed by these ideologies. Take learnings and be rational. This idealism as perspective in international relations became popular after World War I. Why? What happened? World War I. This idea, this idealism, it gained a lot of prominence after World War I. No need to write anything because we'll have detailed Q&A tomorrow. But just engage today in debates. I'll make you write whatever is important. But these discussions are also critical because then you will make a lot of sense to whatever we will do tomorrow. Go back to those years. What's happening in that phase, Venkat?
I'm just making a logical conjecture. There could be a possibility that some international institutions start forming, expecting a mutual cooperation between countries in the similar lines.
But what was happening in World War I? Let's go back to, let's go back to 1910. So the war took place officially between 1914 and 1918. Let's time travel to Europe in 1910. What would you see there? Let's assume that you're a European living in the lands of Hungary, Austria, wherever. Pick one favorite destination. What will you see in 1910? The pre-war years, they were marked by competition, alliances, nationalism that we have today. European powers were heavily militarized. And there was this old belief that power politics, it's the only way, it's the only realistic way to maintain peace. If you're ready for the war, you will be at peace. Use military, use economic strength, secure national interests. That's the only realistic way to maintain peace. And that was the mindset in 1910. But of course, that didn't happen. Why? World War I clearly happened, shattered that belief. No? 1914, 1918, total devastation. 4 brutal years, it was not just soldiers who died. Civilians, they were killed on a massive scale. Food shortages, diseases, and whatnot. Officially, they may say 20 million people died, 21 million wounded, but of course, those are official numbers, underestimated. Entire cities were destroyed, economies crumbled. That is the devastation that you saw. Imagine being a survivor in 1918. What would you see around yourself in Germany, let's say, or Hungary? And you know, the war is over, 1914 to 18. Somehow, magically, you survived. What will you see? Radhana? That's time travel. Tell me.
Sorry, sir. Could you repeat the question again?
So you've got to at least listen. Faces are here, mind somewhere else. Krishna?
Hello, sir. I think, sir, I'll see devastation everywhere.
Yeah. You will see cities in ruins. Not just that, you may perhaps see your family torn apart. You may see many generations of your families dead, gone. You would see a sense of despair over entire Europe. And what will you ask yourself, logically speaking? Looks like this power politics is destroying us, humanity. Won't you be exhausted of this endless cycle of violence, nationalism, militaries? What will I do of this? Alliances if I can't survive? If my family is dead or if cities are in the ruins. It was in this backdrop you see idealism. Idealism in international relations, it called in for diplomacy, cooperation. It called in for the idea that war could be prevented. War could be prevented by addressing the underlying causes of conflict. Okay? And what are those underlying causes of conflict? Think. What could be? Some things have never changed. Take a guess. You've got to take a guess. I'm going to cold call. And no one can ask me to repeat the question. Animesh?
So I think those underlying causes could be the hunger for power, the hunger to secure your interest in such a way.
Do you care about
something
power as a citizen? Think.
As a citizen, I would not really think about power. I would think about my own prosperity.
Yeah.
How can I? And first thing would be food is there, shelter is there.
Let me show you one
and
thing, one very interesting thing. Let's see this. See the anger, see the frustration. That's what I want you to see. Can you hear all this? Let's see this. There's no audio, so chill. But see the frustration, see the anger this guy has. Look at him. This guy. It's a mere car. But what's happening? What do you think they will do after this? They should be moving on, life of a dangai. Life of a pyre, life of dangai. What do you think they will do after this? Why do you think are they doing this? Look at the anger, look at the frustration. Tell me two things. Number one, why are they doing this and what will they do after this? It was a great magical day for them, their life. Sweetie?
So basically, they have been inculcated very much hatred, and after that, they will go and sleep just usually.
Will sleep? Yeah, I think sleep is fine. They'll be dead tired, all the hard work. Let's watch a video. It's in Hindi, but I'll translate this in English, so don't worry. But you will get a sense of what's happening, even if you do not speak the language.
समेटकर दिल्ली लौट आए। बिहार में करीब 3.25 करोड़ लोग गरीब हैं, बेहद गरीब।
Essentially, he's saying that, millions of people in Bihar are extremely poor. Look at them. That's just their daily life. A political rally, they come in like animals, shout slogans, go sleep, beat someone else, vent out the frustration on our vehicle. What a glamorous life. See.
महीने में 6,000 से भी कम कमाते हैं।
They earn less than 6,000 rupees per month.
जाहिर है इनमें से ज्यादातर हिंदू ही होंगे। इस गरीब बिहार को केवल धर्म के आधार पर क्यों जगाया जा रहा है? इनमें से जो हिंदू हैं वो हिंदू जगाओ यात्रा के बाद क्या
So now they are engaging in something called Hindu Jagao Yatra. These very learned men. Majority are men, by the way. Yeah. Majority. Yeah, I can see few women as well.
6,000 की
women empowerment
की जगह 60,000 रुपया महीना कमाने लग जाएंगे। हिंदुओं को किस लिए जगाया जा रहा है? जाति की गणना के अनुसार बिहार की 40% आबादी झोपड़ी, टिन और खपरेल की छत के
नीचे 40% of these folks, logically speaking, statistically speaking, basis his report, they don't even have pakka houses. Live in slums.
नीचे रहती है। क्या इनमें जो हिंदू हैं वो जाग जाएंगे तो उनकी झोपड़ी महल में बदल जाएगी? गिरिराज सिंह की हिंदू जगाओ यात्रा समाप्त हो चुकी है। इन 5 दिनों में कितने हिंदू जागे और जो जागे वो जागने के बाद इन दिनों क्या कर रहे हैं, इसकी जानकारी मुझे नहीं है। गिरिराज सिंह को मोदी सरकार में काफी अहम मंत्रालय मिला हुआ है। कपड़ा मंत्रालय, टेक्सटाइल सेक्टर, भारत।
So basically, a minister in the cabinet, Giriraj Singh, he went in for this yatra. Hindus should rise awake. But if you look at the portfolio of this minister, it's a very, very critical portfolio, textiles. And we are underperforming. This is a sector which has a huge potential from every angle. We'll grow our GDP, will provide innumerable jobs. But this minister has done nothing for this sector. It's in the ruins. Bangladesh, Vietnam, Mexico, they've overtaken us in textiles. But this minister is more concerned about Hindu Jagrati Yatra.
का दूसरा बड़ा सेक्टर है जहां सबसे अधिक लोगों को रोजगार मिला हुआ है। यात्रा के बाद इन तस्वीरों को देखिए, गिरिराज सिंह कपड़ा मंत्रालय में देखे जा सकते हैं। कपड़ा सेक्टर का 90% उत्पाद असंगठित क्षेत्र से आता है। इसमें 4.5 करोड़ लोग काम करते हैं। भारत सरकार का लक्ष्य है कि 2030 तक 1,77,00,000 लोगों को ट्रेनिंग देने की जरूरत है, जिसकी तैयारी की जा रही है। मगर आप जनवरी की इस खबर को देखिए। कपड़ा कमेटी की रिपोर्ट के अनुसार 2015 से 2020 के बीच इस सेक्टर में निर्यात घटा है, आमदनी नहीं बढ़ी और आयात में बढ़ोतरी देखी गई है। इस कारण 2,14,000 से अधिक लोगों का रोजगार प्रभावित हुआ।
2.1 लाख एम्प्लॉयमेंट्स।
लोग कपड़ा छोड़कर दूसरे क्षेत्र में नौकरी ढूंढने लगे। यह आंकड़ा कोविड के आने से पहले का है। क्या आप ये जानते हैं कि भारत का कपड़ा निर्यात लगातार कम हो रहा है? वित्त वर्ष 2022 में कपड़ा निर्यात 41 अरब डॉलर का था, भारतीय रुपए में 3.5 लाख करोड़। अगले साल यह गिरकर 35.5 अरब डॉलर का रह गया। वित्त वर्ष 24 में और कम हो गया, 34 अरब डॉलर पर आ गया। 3.5 लाख करोड़ से गिरकर 2.9 लाख करोड़ पर आ गया है। इस हालत में इस क्षेत्र में 1.25 करोड़ लोगों को और जोड़ना है, तो जाहिर है मंत्री जी के पास बहुत काम होना चाहिए। लेकिन इतने बड़े काम के साथ साथ मंत्री जी बिहार में हिंदू जगाने भी निकल गए थे।
What's happening? Thoughts? On Twitter, we saw frustration, anger, poverty, joblessness. These are the people who struggle for basic survival, basic needs. They live in slums and they have no opportunities. The violence is the only way out to keep themselves entertained. They're angry. They're venting out their anger, frustration, and destroying public property. They're perpetually angry. One WhatsApp message is what you need. And they will be ready to kill anyone, rape anyone. And they are looking out to look for differences. The way you dress, what you eat, what's your religion, what's your caste. And if they see any difference, they will go on rampage. It's happening. But in the second video, we're observing something very interesting. Giriraj Singh has amassed a fortune from this very chaos. Look at his house. It's a mansion. He's made billions. Perhaps his net worth will be more than Elon Musk. Of course, he may not pay taxes because it's all black. He has been in power for more than a decade now. And what's his concern? Hindus are in danger. Muslims are in danger. They are in danger because they lack brain cells. They are in danger because they're not even senior mansions. They can't ask right questions. They engage in whataboutism. Look at his house. It's a marvelous piece of wonder. Lives like a royalty on your money. And you, on the other hand, are rampage. A few days ago, I think someone shared a very interesting post. The first, it had, I think, 2 slides. The first slide had a term called dange karwane wale. Those involved, no, dange karwane wale. Yeah, dange karne wale. Dange karne wale means those involved in violence. They are those who are desperately struggling for food, shelter. They were the faces of those folks who engage in these activities. Dange karte hain. And on the second slide, It was for those dange karwane wale. And they had their, huge mansions, living luxurious lives. It was a very interesting snippet. Why does this happen? As long as there is inequality, as long as there's unemployment, as long as there is illiteracy, as long as there's poverty, as long as there is hunger, every Indian, whether Hindu, Muslim, or otherwise, they will live in insecurity. Today, we may not fully realize this danger. But perhaps hundreds of years ago, world was realizing this danger, especially after the World War I. And that is when liberals said, unless we address these root causes of conflict, poverty, inequality, national insecurity, we all remain at risk. In that fractured world, leaders and thinkers they began to ask themselves, is there a better way? And while asking that question, they turned to idealism. So, what is that idealism? It also has good strands to it. Idealism in international affairs offers hope. Through diplomacy, through cooperation, by resolving the causes of conflict, idealists believe that we can prevent war, we can achieve peace. And one of the biggest champions of idealism was, very interestingly, the American president, Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson believed that a peace and a peaceful world, this peaceful world was possible through international cooperation. Who was Woodrow Wilson? Anyone heard of him? Who was he? Serenity?
So he was former US president, and he's famous for his 14 points. And he was one of the founding members of League of Nations.
Yeah, too many sentences. Many of folks will be confused. League of Nations, 14 points. Yeah, I think he was the 28th president of the US. One of the most passionate advocates for idealism in international relations. I think before he entered politics, he was a scholar, professor. I think he was president, I think, at Princeton University. He's known for his intellect, his vision, his strong moral conviction. What makes him fascinating is how he responded to the devastations of World War I. By the time the war ended in 1918, millions had died. Just saw that. Europe was in ruins. Wilson believed that in such horror, there's a danger. What if it gets repeated? His goal is that it should not get repeated. He felt that peace was not just about absence of war. Peace was something that we have to build, nurture, and protect. Wilson envisioned a world where nations would work together. They would work together to resolve disputes through diplomacy, not violence. He called for the establishment of the League of Nations. What is this League of Nations? How many of you, do not know what is this League of Nations? Raise your hands. Hearing this term for the very first time. League of Nations. Okay. How many of you have heard of United Nations? No. How many of you have not heard of United Nations? So my sense is everyone knows what is the UN, at least heard of it. What do you think UN does? UN. Harika?
Sir, I believe it promotes peace and also provides a platform to resolve transnational issues of importance.
Of course, over the years, the role of UN has evolved tremendously. But I think with its foundations, the purpose was that countries should work together and they should prevent wars. That was the goal. United Nations, a group where countries could, they can come together, could promote peace, security, and cooperation. Now, what if I told you that UN was not the first attempt at creating this global organization? That first attempt was the League of Nations. The League of Nations. Don't have it today, but it was the first attempt. It was actually the world's first attempt to create a council for countries to meet, talk, work together, and prevent conflict, just like the UN. But now, what's the reason we have all heard of UN, but there were so many of you not heard of the League of Nations? What's the reason? What could be the reason? Soumya?
So with the World War II, it sort of collapsed, like the motive of the League of Nations. So it didn't have any relevance.
The League of Nations was created just after World War I. Time of massive devastations. Millions have died. Europe in ruins. Leaders like Woodrow Wilson, they wanted to make sure that such catastrophic wars should not happen again, ever. And in his mind, League of Nations was his answer to that problem. And it was a lot like the UN of today, in some ways. Set up to, help countries resolve conflicts peacefully. But then there was one very, very, very big difference. US, even though the president of the US helped create this league, it never actually joined it. The US Senate didn't approve of it. And without one of the most powerful countries in the world, League was weaker from the beginnings. Foundations were weak, unlike the UN. Today, UN has a lot of power at its disposal. Can authorize military actions, sanctions against countries. League, on the other hand, back in the days, the League of Nations, did not have much powers to enforce. It relied on voluntary cooperation. The way I have today with you, voluntary cooperation. Have cameras on. When I ask you a question, don't ask me to repeat the question. Why? Were you sleeping? But if that voluntary cooperation is backed by, let's say, some diktat, immediately you see efficiency. It did not have that, the League of Nations. And therefore, countries could ignore it. And that's exactly one of the reasons why it failed. Aggressive countries like Germany, Japan, Italy, when they started expanding their territories in the 30s, League of Nations could do nothing. No strong enforcement mechanism. It could not prevent World War II. It happened. If many people ask, UN is a failed organization, ask, should reply. Has there been World War III? If yes, then I could say it's a failed organization. Very, very critical that we move beyond WhatsApp for knowledge. World War II ended in 1945, and then leaders, they came together with a new organization. They learned many lessons from the failures of League of Nations, and then they created the UN with stronger mechanisms to enforce its decisions, broader membership. And this time it also had the US. Of course, that organization has many flaws. And every organization has flaws. And for UN to stay relevant, I think it is critical that, it also addresses those flaws. And we'll have detailed discussions on the UN. It's part of your syllabus. We'll do that in a couple of weeks. So we could say that, the League of Nations was like a first draft. UN is an improved version of it. Clear what's League of Nations? So have this broad idea. There was something called League of Nations. One of the biggest champions of idealism was the US President Woodrow Wilson. He believed that peaceful world was possible through international cooperation. I think Janani mentioned something, a 14-point speech. It's a very, very famous speech. Let me show you a video that beautifully encapsulates the story and history of that speech. If we have to cautiously interlink the past and present, local with global, videos and audios, engagements, to ensure, things get etched in your memories. On the final day of the examination, these discussions automatically, magically will appear. I can bet on this. That's how you should study. Okay. We'll have detailed sessions on UN and the League of Nations, collective security, and other concepts. Just get engaged with the new terminologies for now. In just a span of 3 weeks, I think you will be remarkable in many aspects. So one of the biggest champions of idealism was US President Woodrow Wilson, which we just saw. He believed that a peaceful world was possible through international cooperation. And his vision took a shape in his famous 14 points. Okay. Proposed transparent diplomacy, right of nations to self-determination, disarmament, free trade. I don't think Donald Trump or who wants to make the world great again, none of these think align with him, by the way. And then, yes, of course, then there was this very famous proposal, League of Nations. Countries would come together to resolve disputes peacefully. It was the very first attempt to create a global system to prevent war. Remarkable idea. Trauma of World War I, just we lived through it. In that trauma, idealism was like a beacon of hope. World saw what unchecked nationalism, unchecked power politics, what could that lead to? Aren't we seeing something similar today? Do you think there is a real chance of World War III? Russia versus Ukraine, China versus Taiwan, reliance of the world on Taiwan these days, conflicts in the West Asia, Iran, Israel, Lebanon, many of the regional players. You're sensing World War III. Of course, these situations are concerning, no doubt. But a full-scale World War III, it's unlikely. And we'll decipher that in time to come. Why I say that? We'll build on the foundations of the IR in just a few weeks. So idealism as a perspective in IR, it becomes very popular after World War I. Clear? But those were not the roots of idealism. Roots of idealism actually go back much further. 18th century Enlightenment, perhaps. This was a period in Europe when thinkers like John Locke, Rousseau, they were challenging the traditional ideas about government, power, human nature. Human nature. What was Enlightenment all about? Anyone remembers? Enlightenment. What was that all about? Yes, Soumya?
So it was the age after the Dark Ages where reason and ideas and moving away from more theocratic theocratic ideas were seen. So there was a lot of discussion and debate that was happening, and it was the rebirth of ideas.
It was all about questioning authority. Got to be rational. The rational beings, they question authority. There are many who have lost their rationality to question the authority. It was enlightenment that promoted individual rights. These thinkers, they believed that people were naturally good and that society could progress through reason, through cooperation. If you think about any idealist, will always have this positive, optimistic view of human nature. Humans are good. They will believe that people are naturally good. They will believe that perhaps, that they will also say that in society, it could progress through reason, through cooperation. And that is why, and then they move forward and they bring forth this human nature to the world politics. That's how they see the world also. Because human is good, perhaps everyone, everywhere is good. They all will progress through reason, through cooperation. They will think that people and nations that they could cooperate, not just compete. What did Rousseau say? Didn't he say that humans are inherently peaceful? It's possible for societies to achieve harmony. So let me now bring back and come back to the original question that I asked. Why is this idealist tradition also called as the liberal tradition? The word liberal here is connected to this enlightenment. Liberalism originally referred to ideas of freedom, democracy, individual rights. Liberals believed in what? They believed that people could govern themselves without needing to be controlled by kings or emperors. So when we talk about liberalism and international relations, what are we talking about? We're talking about this belief in cooperation, peace. We're talking about this idea that nations can work together for mutual benefit. Today on Twitter, there is a trend going on. Liberal meltdown. I have to keep on connecting it to the real world. That's how you will grasp concepts. After Donald Trump's recent victory, all the nationalists are celebrating as if it's their victory. Nationalists from India, nationalists from America. Why? What's the reason? Think about his policies. Trump's policies, it represents a shift away from liberal values. Liberal values of inclusivity, human rights, cooperation, both at home and abroad. For Americans, it may make sense. Why are Indians celebrating? Instead of working with other countries, he has been very open about America's interests alone. This rise of nationalism, it's a global trend now. Many countries are seeing a rise in leaders who emphasize nationalism, sovereignty over global cooperation. The reality is, world cannot move without global cooperation. Terrorism, climate change, the conflicts that we see, something happening in Afghanistan will have consequences in America or India, wherever. So we are seeing this trend that countries' interests first is more important than working together with other nations. Makes sense. And that's why perhaps there is liberal meltdown on Twitter. And that's where liberal meltdown on Twitter connects back to the idealism and realism in international relations. It feels like that these ideas are not just theories, they're actually shaping what's happening in the world today, right in front of our eyes. And that's why I'm taking cautious efforts today to connect history with the present. Because it helps us see the choices that countries face, leaders face, and the impact of those choices on all of us. So again, when we talk about liberalism in international relations, we are talking about a belief in cooperation, peace, an idea that nations can work together for mutual benefit. United Nations, it was built on liberal ideas. It encourages countries to talk, cooperate, resolve conflicts peacefully. It's a very liberal idea. It is based on this belief that nations can work together for common goals. Woodrow Wilson, he was thinking beyond punishing Germany or creating new borders. He was looking to establish a framework for lasting peace. Of course, that didn't work out. US itself now became part of the League of Nations, an early version of the UN. Diplomacy is critical. Dialogue is important. Cooperation is important. We can't discard that. What do you think is the biggest challenge to this idealist view? Yes, Myra?
So the power dynamics, the realist, what they suggest, the power
Okay.
struggle.
We'll see in time to come. Or do we see, can we say idealism is relevant today? There are many questions that I will raise today. We'll be addressing all these questions in detail tomorrow in all the Q&A format. But today I just want you to just understand the beginnings of idealism, some bits and pieces about realism, what it means at a broader level. Don't worry about the broad definitions. We'll all get onto it tomorrow. But just think about the Paris Agreement on climate change. Nations, they came together. Despite all the differences that they had, they agreed on some goals. Limit the global warming. It's concerning, it's an issue. That's modern examples of idealism. It's based on the belief that countries can cooperate to solve global problems. So liberal tradition is all about belief in cooperation, peace, progress. They believe human nature sees some reflection. Of course, there will be some strands of it. We'll look at it. So today and tomorrow, I think tomorrow and then the day after also, it's dedicated to understanding these approaches in international relations. Any news, any article that you may read, immediately you can see and analyze that through various lenses. One mistake that many instructors that they make is they pick up each traditions and they make you write detailed notes on these traditions. I won't do that. They'll talk about Woodrow Wilson, will make you write 14 points. Punch all 5 points. No need to cram all that nonsense. Questions are important. You can engineer the way how UPSC will test you. The goal is to crack the highest ever, get the highest ever score in this option, not acquire PhDs, write detailed notes. So we'll approach the entire subject from the examination standpoint. Okay, and we'll build onto this tomorrow. So enjoy the day, and from tomorrow onwards, we'll pick up some piece. Please have your cameras on, and yeah, look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Good luck.